What happened to the hikers of Dyatlov Pass? Here is what is known. In 1959, a group of experienced hikers set out on a trek through the Ural Mountains in Russia. Their goal was to reach a peak known as Letsgetscaredchannel, but they never made it. When search teams finally found their campsite weeks later, it was abandoned and the hikers were nowhere to be seen. What they discovered next would become one of the most enduring mysteries in Russian history. The first thing the search team noticed was that the hikers' tent had been torn open from the inside. There were footprints leading away from the tent, but they only led to a few of the bodies that were found scattered across the snow-covered landscape. Some of the hikers had died of hypothermia, but others had been injured in bizarre ways that defied explanation. One had a crushed skull, another had a missing tongue, and yet another was missing her eyes. Theories abound as to what happened that fateful night, but no one can agree on the cause. Some say it was an avalanche that caused the injuries, but the lack of evidence for such an event makes this explanation unlikely. Others say that the hikers were attacked by a group of locals or military personnel, but no motive has ever been established for such an attack. One theory that has gained popularity in recent years is that the hikers were victims of an otherworldly encounter. According to this theory, the hikers stumbled upon a secret government experiment that had gone horribly wrong. They were then abducted and experimented on by extraterrestrial beings who caused the bizarre injuries that were found on some of the bodies. Whatever the truth may be, the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident remains unsolved to this day. Some say that the area is cursed and that those who venture into the mountains risk meeting the same fate as the unfortunate hikers. Whether or not this is true, one thing is certain. The events of that night in 1959 will continue to haunt us for generations to come. Our next mystery is that of the Hinterkaifeck murders. In 1922, a family of 6 was brutally murdered on their farm in Hinterkaifeck, Germany. The victims included the elderly patriarch Andreas Gruber, his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria, and her 2 young children. The killer or killers were never found, and the case remains one of the most notorious unsolved mysteries in German history. The murders were discovered when the family's neighbors became concerned that they hadn't seen or heard from them in several days. When they went to check on the farm, they found the bodies of the Gruber family and their mate in the barn. The children's bodies were found in their beds inside the house. The grisly scene suggested a brutal and prolonged attack, but there was no sign of a struggle, and no murder weapon was ever found. Investigators soon realized that the killer had likely been living on the farm for several days before the murders took place. Footprints were found leading from the nearby woods to the farm, and someone had been eating food from the kitchen. The killer had also taken the time to carefully stack hay bales in the barn to make a bed for themselves. In the aftermath of the murders, several suspects were considered, including the family's former maid, a neighbor with a grudge, and even Andreas Gruber's own son, who had been rumored to have an incestuous relationship with his sister Victoria. However, no one was ever charged with the crime, and the case remains unsolved to this day. To make matters even more chilling, there were several strange occurrences reported on the farm in the months leading up to the murders. The family had reported hearing footsteps in the attic, finding footprints in the snow leading to the house, and seeing a strange man watching them from the woods. Despite these warning signs, they chose to stay on the farm and were ultimately murdered by an unknown assailant. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain a haunting reminder of the dark side of human nature, and a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most terrifying things are the ones we can't explain. The case of the Sodder children. On Christmas Eve in 1945, a fire broke out in the home of George and Jenny Sodder in Fayetteville, West Virginia. 5 of their children, ranging in age from 5 to 14, were sleeping upstairs and could not be found in the aftermath of the fire. The remains of the children were never found, and their bodies were not discovered among the ashes of the house. Suspiciously, the Sodders began to receive tips and sightings of their missing children in the years following the fire. In one instance, a woman claimed to have seen the missing children in a car driving away from the burning house on the night of the fire. In another instance, a letter was received by the family from someone who claimed to have seen the missing children alive and well in a nearby state. The family suspected foul play and believed that their children had been kidnapped and taken away. They hired private investigators and even conducted their own searches, but the children were never found. To this day, the disappearance of the Sodder children remains a haunting mystery, with no definitive explanation for what happened to them. The Bell Witch Haunting. The Bell Witch Haunting is one of the most famous cases of a purported poltergeist haunting in American history. It took place in the early 19th century in the small town of Adams, Tennessee, and involved the Bell family. According to legend, the haunting began with John Bell Sr. encountering a strange animal while checking his fields. Soon after, his family began experiencing strange occurrences, including unexplained knocking, scratching sounds, and the feeling of being touched by an unseen presence. The haunting escalated to include physical attacks on family members, such as choking and slapping. The family turned to neighbors and even a local schoolteacher, James Johnston, for help, and eventually, word of the haunting spread beyond their small community. Several paranormal investigators visited the Bell home, including Andrew Jackson, who later became the President of the United States. The Bell Witch reportedly spoke to Jackson, who was so frightened that he refused to ever return to the house. The Bell Witch haunting remains unsolved to this day, with no clear explanation for the strange occurrences. Some attribute the events to natural phenomena or mental illness, while others believe that the Bell Witch was a vengeful spirit seeking revenge on John Bell for a past misdeed. Hopefully you enjoyed these creepy yet true unsolved mysteries. Please like, share and subscribe. Hit the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. Until next time, stay well.